Let's learn English by reading this article about a man who tried to cross the ocean in a giant hamster wheel. Hi, my name is Reese from EnglishWithReese.com, and today we're going to improve our grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. If this video is too fast for you, there is a button in the bottom right-hand corner that you can use to slow the video down. Let's jump into it. Coast Guard arrests a man trying to run hamster wheel across the Atlantic. Okay, let's check out some vocabulary. So a Coast Guard is a job title. It's sort of like the police of the ocean. So they kind of make sure that nobody is doing anything illegal, trying to take things to and from different countries, for example. But they're also there to rescue people who are stuck at sea and sometimes rescue property too. So this Coast Guard arrested a man trying to run a giant hamster wheel across the Atlantic. Okay, I think we need to see what a hamster wheel is. So here's a good example of a hamster wheel. This little hamster will run around and the wheel will go round and round too. And that's what this human was trying to do also. You can see him there in the middle of this giant hamster wheel. So he's going to try to run across the ocean. So let's read a bit more about that. Reza Baluchi, a Florida resident granted asylum from Iran, was taken in by the Coast Guard while aboard his homemade hamster wheel made of buoys and wire. Okay, so here's a Florida resident. He resides in Florida. In other words, he lives there. But he was given asylum from Iran. So in other words, he left Iran because he was scared for his life. And America, Florida in particular, said that he could live there. They granted him asylum. They gave him a safe place to live. Now, he was taken in by the Coast Guard. Now, you could imagine this literally. He takes him in. But really what we're saying is he was arrested by the Coast Guard while aboard. So aboard is a word we can use when we are on top of a vehicle, usually a boat or a ship or a train. We say we are on there, we are aboard the vehicle. Okay, and he is aboard his giant hamster wheel. Okay, and it's made of buoys and wire. Okay, so let's check out what buoys are in this context. We can see these large red and white plastic things that float in the ocean. They don't go under the water, they stay on top, right? Usually they're in the ocean, but here they are attached to this man's giant hamster wheel. Now, a little pronunciation tip for this word. In British English, we say buoys, but in American English, we say buoys, buoys. Okay, so it's up to you which one you prefer. Neither one is better, but buoys is a little bit quicker, British English. So it's made of buoys and wire. Baluchi told officers his destination, London, England, more than 4,000 miles away. So your destination is where you want to go. You know, if you're driving to work, your destination is work. If you're flying to China, your destination is China. Now he is running in his hamster wheel and his destination is London. When asked for his vessel's registration, Baluchi said it was registered in Florida, but that he couldn't find the registration. Okay, so we have this word registration, so probably a piece of paper or a little card which says that he is the owner of this vessel. Okay, and vessel is another word for boat or boat-like objects in this context. He said that the vessel was registered in Florida. Okay, so to get your registration, you must register. Okay, so maybe if you've ever bought a car, you know you need to go on the government website or maybe into a building and give them lots of information. That's you registering. And then if you're successful, they will give you your registration, the piece of paper that says you own this car. But Bellucci said he couldn't find the registration. The Coast Guard assessed Bellucci's hydropod and deemed the voyage unsafe. So the Coast Guard assessed the hydropod. He looked at it, he thought about it with lots of other information he knows, and in the end he decided that the hydropod was not safe. Perhaps he thought that the hydropod would sink. So let's look at that word, hydropod. That is the real name for this hamster wheel that Bellucci is running inside. It's called a hydropod. It comes from two parts. Hydro, which means water, and pod you can think of as a big circle you can go inside. Kind of like a pea pod. The peas are inside the green pod. He is inside the hydropod. And the Coast Guard deemed the voyage unsafe. In the end, after he considered everything, he said, with my knowledge, this boat is not safe. The voyage means the journey, so he's leaving Florida and he's going all the way to London. This is his voyage. This is his journey, his trip. Now check this out here. The Coast Guard assessed Bellucci's, I'm not saying assessed Bellucci's, because I have to stop talking, it cuts the flow. So I just take that d and I throw it away. I say assess Bellucci's. Okay, it comes out a little faster. I don't need to stop talking. That's a natural way to pronounce this. You see, d and b. They are not long sounds. You can't make them for a long time, like s, sh. They're short. D, b. So we say, assess Bellucci's. Officers in a small boat approached Bellucci, instructing him to join them. Bellucci threatened to hurt himself with a 12-inch knife if they attempted to remove him. The officers returned to their vessel and stayed nearby. Okay. An officer is one person in the Coast Guard. He is an officer or she is an officer. We could also say that he is a Coast Guard. Okay. It's a bit like the police. We have the police, the big group, and we have a police officer. It's the same kind of way. And they approached Bellucci. In other words, they came up to him. Okay. If you walk up to someone, you approach them. And the officers approached Bellucci. And they instructed him to join them. In other words, they told him, you must join us. You don't have a choice. You must do this. This is an instruction. It is not a request. You're not allowed to think about it. You just have to come with us. We are officers. Okay, so it's very strict. Bellucci threatened to hurt himself. Okay, when you threaten to do something, you say, I will do this bad thing if you don't do this. Okay, so in this example, Bellucci threatened to hurt himself if the officers tried to take him, if they attempted to remove him. And he had a 12-inch knife. Okay, so he's probably not joking about this. So the officers returned to their vessel. They turned around and they went back to their vessel. Remember, that's a boat or something like a boat. And they just stayed nearby. They stayed near him, okay? Just to watch and think about what they're going to do. Now let me show you something that I think a lot of English learners wouldn't know that they can do. Check out this sentence. Bellucci threatened to hurt himself with a 12-inch knife if they attempted to remove him. Now, I think most learners would naturally put if first. They would say, if they attempted to remove him, Bellucci threatened to hurt himself. Okay, that's the way we learn to use if sentences, but you don't have to use it that way. So the writer has chosen to put Bellucci threatened to hurt himself first. The reason, I think, is so that when we imagine this story, we easily know where everything goes or when everything was. So I think Bellucci threatened to hurt himself first, and then he said, if you attempt to remove me, okay? I will hurt myself if you attempt to remove me, okay? I think that's the real way it happened, so that's the way the writer has chosen to write it. And check this out, approach Bellucci. Again, this d, we don't want to do it, so we say approach Bellucci. We just throw the d away. And we have another one here, threatened to hurt himself. Threatened to. We're throwing the d away again. So have you noticed a pattern yet? We throw away the last sound in the first word. Okay, so look at this. Approached Bellucci. Approach Bellucci. If we change that, if we keep the d and throw the b away from Bellucci, it would be approach Delucci. And now that doesn't sound right anymore, and it's confusing because there is no Delucci in this story. Okay, so the first sound of the word is more important than the last sound of the word. That's why the last sound is thrown away. In subsequent attempts, Bellucci displayed 2 knives and threatened to hurt himself, and claimed to have an explosive device with wires in his hand. Okay, so in subsequent attempts, in the following attempts, in the attempts after that, Bellucci displayed, he showed 2 knives. And again, he threatened to hurt himself. He said, I will do this bad thing if you don't do this. And he claimed, or in other words, he said, without evidence, that he had an explosive device. Okay, so explosive comes from the word explode, which is when something blows up like a firework in the sky. It blows up, it explodes. And he showed that he had some wires in his hand. So perhaps it looked something a little like this. Now this is a cable and wires are inside, but natives confuse them a lot. So I expect he had some cables rather than wires in his hands. And that was enough for the officers to feel like maybe it's true. So they backed off, they went back. Now I want to come back to this word, attempts, okay? And I want you to listen carefully and see which sounds I'm saying and which sounds I'm not saying. In subsequent attempts, I'm actually not using that p, okay? I'm saying attempts. So let's try it with the p, attempts, okay? You can say it, but it's a little harder. And when you're speaking fast, you don't usually pronounce everything. So it comes out as attempts. The following day, a second Coast Guard arrived, delivering food, water, and word that the hurricane was expected. Bellucci refused to leave and told the officers that the bomb wasn't real. Okay. So the following day just means the next day. Okay. We could use this in many ways. So a TV show, in this episode, Barney bought a house. The following day, the house was on fire. The house was on fire the next day. Or I could say, Barney bought a house. In the following episode, the house caught fire in the next episode. Okay, so following just means next, but you need to have something on the end, like day, episode, week, year, something like that. And a second Coast Guard arrived. Okay, so Coast Guard number 2. We could think of it like that, a Coast Guard who wasn't the first Coast Guard. He came, delivering food. He brought food to give to Reza. He also gave him water and word that the hurricane was expected. Now, you might not expect to see word here, but it's actually okay. It can be used to mean a short message or statement, like a sentence or two. So they gave him a sentence or two that the hurricane was expected. Now, a hurricane is an extreme kind of wind that looks like this. Very destructive. A lot of people and animals die and houses are blown over and all sorts of horrible things. So a hurricane is expected, and Baluchi is in the middle of the ocean. Okay? They're expecting a hurricane. They think it will come soon and they're getting ready for it. But still, Baluchi refused to leave. He said, I am not leaving. When you refuse something, you say, I will not. Blah, 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 right? So you could refuse dinner. Someone wants to give you dinner. No, I refuse. Don't give that to me. Okay. You're just saying no, pretty much. He's saying, no, I will not leave. But he did tell the officers that the bomb wasn't real. So remember the explosive device? This is the word we can use for that, a shorter word. On August 29th, the Coast Guard finally removed Baluchi from his floating hamster wheel. He was released on a $250,000 bond in Miami Beach. So the Coast Guard finally removed Baluchi and they arrested him. They took him into the police station. And I know that because he was released. He was let go from somewhere. So where did he go? So maybe it's a police station, or maybe the Coast Guard has a special building for that. They released him on a $250,000 bond. Now, that's kind of like an agreement. So if Baluchi does not go to court, then he will need to pay $250,000. Okay? So it's kind of a way to let someone go free if they're not dangerous, but make sure that they come back for their court date. So what I like to do now is read through the entire article again without stopping, without slowing down, so that you get to hear what a real native sounds like. Okay? And I would like you to try to read along as I speak. And remember, you can slow the video down. But before I do that, if you have learned something today, please subscribe. It will help me out a lot. It will help you get more videos like this in the future, and it will help other people to find my videos and learn English too. Let's jump into it. Coast Guard arrests a man trying to run a giant hamster wheel across the Atlantic. Reza Baluchi, a Florida resident granted asylum from Iran, was taken in by the Coast Guard while aboard his homemade hamster wheel made of buoys and wire. Baluchi told officers his destination, London, England, more than 4,000 miles away. When asked for his vessel's registration, Baluchi said it was registered in Florida, but that he couldn't find the registration. The Coast Guard assessed Baluchi's hydropod and deemed the voyage unsafe. Officers in a small boat approached Baluchi, instructing him to join them. Baluchi threatened to hurt himself with a 12-inch knife if they attempted to remove him. The officers returned to their vessel and stayed nearby. In subsequent attempts, Baluchi displayed 2 knives and threatened to hurt himself, and claimed to have an explosive device with wires in his hand. The following day, a second Coast Guard arrived, delivering food, water, and word that the hurricane was expected. Baluchi refused to leave and told the officers that the bomb wasn't real. On August 29th, the Coast Guard finally removed Baluchi from his floating hamster wheel. On August 29th, the Coast Guard finally removed Baluchi from his floating hamster wheel. He was released on $250,000 bond in Miami Beach. Alright guys, that's going to be it for today. Remember to like the video and visit EnglishWithReese.com to improve your English even faster. See you later.